won't affect us too much. Just for the annual trip to Colville to see what's going on here. Great to see that people have come to share some thoughts with us. So welcome and thanks for coming. So the community board here, for those that don't know us, I guess we'll do some introductions first. We have an apology from Jean. She can't join us today. And otherwise, I'm Gavin, I'm the chair of the board currently and work around the table.
Yeah. John Morrissey, councillor. Jim Davis, board.
I'm Marie, community board.
Jessie Holland, the governance advisor. Jessie.
Margaret, aka Bubbles Harris.
In the nosebleeds.
Sorry, please, my name's Selena Spector. I'm very administrative for property departments.
And Morena, I am Kathy and I am part of the communications team at TFC.
They don't have an infectious disease, it's just that the access to the PowerPoint from a position where they can see the screen. And also Luke.
Yeah, Luke Archibald, lead the project delivery function for council.
I'm Georgia Nugent and I'm part of the project delivery team.
Cool. Welcome. So, just the apology from Jean. We a mover and seconder.
I'll second.
Favour?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, public forum. I'm wishing to speak before the meeting starts. Tony,
Yep.
welcome.
Of course. Now, so we've got a couple of.
Tony, would you mind, so we just, if you could please just grab your chair and come to
Just
the
sit
table.
here.
Yeah, just so you're not sitting behind.
Think of a couple. Is this a time to bring up issues?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
You owe me.
Yeah. And Jenna, sorry, I missed Jenna in the introductions.
It's okay. I'm just Jenna Litchfield. I'm another governance advisor. Nice to see you all.
So I can do.
Yes, please.
And so the comms, member of the comms team for TCDC is over there. The big issue we've had in the last 2 years, obviously roads have been rebuilt, which we are hugely appreciative. Huge. The issue we have is we get almost zero warning that a section of the road, say between Coromandel and Colville, is going to be either semi-closed or under stoplight for weeks, if not months. And we have almost never, none of the businesses here have been directly contacted with their section. When we find out it's happening, we contact TCBC and we're told, oh, it's on the Facebook page. It doesn't work. It isn't good enough. So the comms team, if there's any projects that are going to impede transport or communication, the businesses here, let alone the people, has to know before it. And it doesn't mean just sticking up on a Facebook page, because some of us really have walked away from the idea that we can.
Yeah, and there were some big ones, Tony, particularly with the store, wasn't there?
Exactly. It has had an influence on almost the viability of several businesses. At times, it's really hurt. And I'm quite aware that across the entire peninsula, this has happened to people. But it's just a matter of communications. If something major is going to happen, please let the area and businesses know before it happens. That's the first thing.
Is that possible to do that by email? Because again, we know.
Chair, I personally know that I contact all the contacts that I have from Colt by email and send them a notice. I specifically have spoken to Roland about this issue because the last time we came up, it was mentioned. I am aware of the issues that we have in the store.
Yeah.
So I certainly do apologise, but there's no, for us, there's no one entity that we could contact involved that disperses. So I do make the effort to contact the medical centre, Colville Junction, the Colville, people that I know, the school that are in with each other to try and get it out there. I have actually emailed the store on occasion and asked them to put a notice on the window.
Yeah.
But we hear you loud and clear and it doesn't always get to everyone, but I can assure you that we are trying to improve our communications.
And I acknowledge the fact that at least once I did see, because I'm involved with the store, an email about closures and things. So it has happened, but it hasn't been enough.
Consistent.
Yes, or through consistent means. We had it. So, yeah.
Let's go with the last one, on the other side of the Colville,
Yes.
on the other side of the Big Bay Hill. We've gone from hourly openings and been able to manage it just with traffic lights. I think that was a real positive for us.
I agree with that. Having noticed that as well. And yes, we're really happy getting fixed. Because we don't, during our storm, the storms 2 years ago, we reached a point here of actually considering trying to barge food from the Thames up to the sea, because that's our, even though the people in the area are used to hunkering down and storing food. There's no. But just a clear comms, I mean, even that is major, that's going to affect the community and the business, we would appreciate.
You had another point, Tony, did you say?
Yes, then, now I don't know the technical name of it, but there's a business support group or a business development group in PCDC. We would like to know what resources they have available for small business. It won't surprise you that small business will discuss even medium business. So we're just interested in what resources PCDC you can access or inform them of the year. It's the kind of broad question, but we want to know what else.
Would you be the contact for someone within the organisation to contact, or who would you want them to contact?
That is something otherwise. That's one of our issues. Being a dispersed rural area, we don't have a central say, other than really the cooperative society and the junction, which are kind of the two central points, but not specific. Yes, I'd be prepared to give you my phone and email contacts with anything of that nature.
Yeah, because certainly within council, but also links to wider organisations around the region. Yeah.
Regional funding in just regional resources. Right. That's the two immediate things I thought of. There are other people here who are outspoken on things.
Thank you.
So I'll step back.
And just while we're changing over, welcome, Jean.
Sorry,
No, we withdraw your apology. Yeah. That's one that. Who else would like to speak about it? Yep.
Morning, everyone. I've got three issues that I want to talk about, and mainly it's updates. The item one is the speed limit change at Little Bay, Waikowhai Beach Road.
Yeah.
And we've worked together for quite a while now, and I just was hoping that he could give us some sort of update.
Annie, did you see the last response that came from the roading manager with respect to the speed noted through the area then?
The last communication I got was we were all waiting until the new speed limit, was publicised by the new government.
Yeah.
And Margaret emailed me that she was hoping to get something done before Christmas, but it didn't eventuate, so. Yeah, so what's the latest update?
So in terms of putting in road speed changes, we've really struggled to gain any traction from, really it's the interaction between local government and central government. Central government hold all of the rule making, and they also hold the purse strings which are connected to the rule making. So when they say we're not going to do it, they don't provide any funding for us to do it. So as a district, we don't have money allocated to it. And saying that, we didn't feel it was a big expense and we felt it was worth pursuing. But in the meantime, staff have dug into it a bit more deeply, and this will be with the conspiracy theorists who believe that the state is collecting data on all of us and accumulating all this stuff about us. It's actually true in some respect. So through cell phone movements, through GPS, NZTA are able to gather data about transport movements, about vehicle movements, how fast, how many. So two things, they haven't noticed anything in the data that suggests a speed issue through that area. And coupled with the fact that, there weren't any accidents, there haven't been accidents reported in that area, it's not seen as being something that needs to be prioritised to the point where, yes, we're going to, not challenge central government, but go through that quite considerable process now that you need to go through. So unfortunately, it doesn't sort of meet the threshold to justify the expense and the work that would go through to get a speed change across the line.
So you're basically saying that it's never going to change.
Never say never. There's an election next October and who knows what's going to happen. But for now, with the current rules, the way they sit, the current availability of funds and the current assessment of the safety risk in that area, it's not going to get done.
Okay, and right through this process, through the board, they've had 2 reports from TCDC rating managers, and they've brought up no funding and no funding available, and there's no project available for it, which I just like to be minute that I believe that is a load of fault. In management, you have a list of things to do, and when it becomes budget time, you allocate a certain amount of money. Now, this has gone on for 7 years. So you're telling me that TCDC have had this request and put no money aside for 7 years? So if I was the manager, they wouldn't be working for me. So, the budget restraints to me is totally invalid. I accept that the New Zealand Transport Board saying the traffic flow and the lack of accidents doesn't require it, and it's a very late flow. I'll accept that. I don't agree with it, but I'll accept it. But I will not accept that somebody telling me that there's no funds available and they'd have to raise funds and this, and it's been on the table for 7 years. Doesn't wash it.
Yeah.
All right.
I have the frustration. I can definitely, we all sympathise with you and the work that you've gone into it, getting it across.
Okay, the other thing is,
On here.
Penny, are you aware that, you are aware, this board really has.
yeah, no,
And we probably have, but, just got taken away from us last moment. And probably thank goodness it was taken away from us, was we would now be ripping out those signs as a government policy. we'd actually managed to get it down to 50,000 gallon. It's just removed all those speed limits that we put in place previously. And so we would have achieved nothing, spent some money for nothing. But there is some hope. Government policy is speed management plans for these areas. And they're not simple. In fact, they're very complicated. But council is actually looking at if you do a speed management plan for a little bay, it's quite costly. If you do one for the coast somewhere, it's quite costly. So all these little individual speed management plans are very costly. But you can, under the new government policy, do a district-wide speed management plan, incorporating all those areas as called that way. So that's currently what council is looking at. I'm not going to say it's not going to be easy, but it's certainly cheaper to do them in bulk rather than individually. So Little Bay will be lumped in there at some stage.
Okay, yeah.
John, just a little piece about funding. Just wonder if you would share some of the work that council's doing or has been doing recently, just around that keeping the rate rise down and the focus and the work that's had to be done to maintain that.
Yeah, councils require no rate rise, that's what we want to see that this council, the organisation, a lot of pain. The councils all the line, and that's where it's sort of been coming out. 7.6, I know it's still a reasonable rate rise, but
If people are looking to 11, perhaps, council.
yeah, it's 11-12%, taken a lot of even got to get the other 7.7 and then hold the line. There's been all sorts of costs that council waste management, water contracts coming out for renewal, and they have gone through the roof. So, but I am actually quite proud of the councils there. They held the organisation on that line. It wasn't easy, but things like signs and that, they don't take a high priority when you talk about rubbish.
Yeah, I believe that
Yeah, we are.
PCBs have got the lowest rate increase around this, the whole.
Yeah, we're working in fairness and kind.
Well, Danny, the next thing.
Yeah, the next thing is the road repairs.
Yeah.
I know lots of people here will go to Little Bay and enjoy Little Bay. In December, on the 12th of December, I put a request through to through the road and through the water. It's a road at the edge of the roadway, and it's really narrowed the road and access to the car park. It's really dangerous, and I was lucky enough to be invited to go in someone's sea league on amphibious aircraft. And when we were coming going home, a little car come through. We moved to the side, ended up about 45 degrees because my wheel went over the edge. But so we got people to stand on the thing about me about, but my issue is, and it still is, if a little car went in there, it would roll. So, but that was on the 12th of December, I raised it, and then further communications, and then on February, I got a reply that they had put it in the priority listing, and that they couldn't tell us what date it would be repaired. I flicked that email and I just said this is totally unacceptable. That was the 1st of February, and I flicked my reply to John and Margaret. And then, but since then, one of my other concerns is contractors have been in Little Bay 3 times. Council contractors have been in Little Bay 3 times doing road repairs, they've had all the machinery. It would have taken them half an hour to do that. But they all leave, and then they all have to come back if and when. So to me, somebody should be questioning, you know, how are jobs allocated? You know, surely, you know, like surely if it's a builder or an electrician or a plumber, and you hear it every day, they go, oh yes, I'll do that next week because I've got 3 jobs at Little Bay and I'll do it while I'm in Little Bay. They don't go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I just can't understand why can't whoever allocates the work to be done can't do the same, which must be a cost benefit for the council, really. But you know, so right now they still have to be. That's nearly 4 months. And we've had no word, but it'll be everything. So that's my second point.
So Luke, being the project guy, any thoughts on allocation of jobs? Just to throw you under the bus.
Right, so it's not a project, it's an operational repair, by the sound of it. So it would sit with the roading activity. And they would usually issue through to their contractor, the job, and then the contractor is actually in charge of scheduling their own work across the area. Right. So my solution would be we'd need to reach out to the roading team. Highlight this particular job and just have a conversation with them around next time they're up, making sure it's actually we shine a light on it.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, like everything, things that seem simple on the surface, like changing road speeds, sometimes underneath the surface aren't as simple as I think here. But good news, it's due to be done in the next few weeks.
Is it?
Yeah. So summer's been and gone, but
And I'm quite sure that everybody here is putting their hands up and say they see it every day. Contractors come and go and they, you know, there's a little repair over there and they don't do it. Yeah. Anyhow, that's my other thing. So I'm going to write there, Gavin has Steve, is that right?
it's not.
No pressure.
Okay. And the other thing is, this is a nice thing, is the Little Bay Ratepayers Association bought their own AED, and we put a first aid box up, and once in 2016 we were the only community that had an AED available. And we had told everybody that it was available, and all the emergency services told it was available. But right now it's we had my email to Margaret, it needs to be St. John's have recommended that it should be replaced because they're not willing to warrant it anymore, because we get it serviced every year. And we were just asking, is there any, and I appreciate it could be in committee business, but is there any opportunity for financial assistance by the Coromandel-Colville? And you may have to talk about this in committee.
Yeah, it's on the agenda for later on for us to make a decision with respect to that. But I guess while you're here, does anyone have any questions, if any, about the defibrillator, the use of it?
It's been used 3 times.
Yep.
You know, once wasn't, twice was successful, once unfortunately wasn't.
That's the high rate.
Oh, exactly.
But you know, but it was there to use. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thanks, Danny. Other question?
So there's going to be a sort of open forum later on, eh?
You have a session with the community board just for your local issue.
Yes. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
I'd just like to ask how the council prices all these jobs. They do, like, I was reading in the paper about the school signs costing 1.2 million to replace. And I talked to the guys in the sign business, he said he'd do it for 500,000, no problem. We bring up someone in council and told him he'd do it for half that. Can't do it because it's 1.2 million. So I'm just wondering who prices all these jobs.
Yeah, Kelvin, I guess we can't, to dig into the details, we don't know. But yeah, I think it's a point that's often raised with people about how much council pays to get things done. But yeah, in terms of taking it anywhere.
Luke? I think there's essentially council has a procurement policy that follows the government procurement guidelines. So if it goes over a certain value, you actually have to go to market and put the work out there, and then the market decides on the value. The challenge is when council puts things out there, the market is obviously aware of what we can do with the money we've got. So whether it's market tight or market not tight, we're tendering for it. So what I've found recently is that actually our estimates from our QSs are coming in and the market is below those estimates at the moment because actually business is scarce and they're more sharpening their pencils more. If you would have said the same 12 to 18 months ago, it wouldn't have been the same story. We would QS check it and it would come over the QS and we'd be challenged at that point. So it could be a timing thing as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this is something that's worked on following the process.
You know, I talked to a few sign people about it because I didn't like to leave one first guy, but they seem to think that was incredibly absorbent. They were pretty done hard.
Right. So anything like that will go on the GETS, which is the government electronic tendering service. And so it's an open tender of that value. So they're welcome to tender that work going forward when it comes up next time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
On radar, so we're to it now. And I just wanted to add something to our first message here. We have the roads closed from time to time. And every now and then we find our only access over the top there in the Bay Hill or through Colville are closed at the same time. I just wonder whether it could be arranged so that Colville people and people from Turnow and Kimberley and so forth could have an open road so that we can get through one way or the other.
Yeah.
For Kennedy Bay, of course, it's quite a long drive around there. Plus, it's not too much different. Like Little Bay is about halfway point.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to be able to think if we have an emergency, we can get out, or even if we want to go shopping.
Yeah, at least have an option.
Yeah.
They're
They're both closed at the same time.
Yep. Thank you.
I know that the ones on this side tend to be much longer closures. But at times, you do have quite long closures on both sides.
Yeah.
So if that could be organised, that would be really good. Thank you, Bob.
I don't have a lot of authority over roading works.
No, but we could notice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Anne Manger and I would like to talk as two different hats. I'm the community worker for the Colville Junction and I'm also part of the board of trustees for the school. To start with, I would like to thank you for the communication you did put towards us when road closure, etc. came. I just want to remind everyone that every month the junction is publishing a panowie and we've got around 400 people that reads the panowie. So it's a good way for you, council, to pass your information. And so we have the same dates and deadlines than the Coromandel Chronicle, just for information. So you can just send us your communications through that. I wanted also to point out that last year in March, we sent the council a letter about the rubbish management, waste management. This was brought to us through different community members who had issues with their during the summer. So the junction talked on behalf of those people and also us, because we had issues during the summer where people, probably tourists who didn't know what to do with their rubbish, put it in local bins or on the side of the road. And this year we had also the good surprise of the toilets. The toilets were full of rubbish at some point. Yeah. So yeah, we haven't heard back from the council. So in this letter we were proposing, but recommending maybe to have exception with the something like the blue bags or something for tourists to be able to dispose of their rubbish in this peak season, because yeah, now 2 or 3 years in a row we had this issue. Where also we could find compost. I mean, in the letter we explain what. Just pointing it out, we are happy to resend it and maybe update it.
Maybe it's just in the future, copy me in, because I don't know anything about your religious story.
Okay, yeah.
But it will have gone to our solid waste staff, so I can follow it up though now that I know.
Yeah. Is there any plan to manage this peak season?
So, as I recall, there was a review to take place of the rubbish system. But that's something that was going to take place. Yeah, it was after all the bins got introduced. That was part of it. I might be wrong. But apart from that, yeah, it's a very difficult one.
We rely on people going to take their own rubbish to the refuse center, but you know, when tourists leave and it's outside of ours and things like this, it's complicated.
Yeah, dock camps don't manage waste at all anymore. If it's any consolation, the people who come through know how tidy the place is and how little rubbish there is compared to a lot of the other places they go to around the world. But we need to work to keep it like that. Thank
I will
you.
listen to the.
Yeah.
The second part of it is us as the school board. We would like to thank the community board for the swings. You were part of Trust Waikato to bring some more playground for our kids. It is really well used. I can tell you that the whole community, and not only school kids, but other schools that come and join us or go through there, they use it, and tourists use it and all of that. So it was a good investment. Thank you very much. And the kids, it's all they got it. They are super. We are still working on the car park issues because you know how risky it is, this situation. We've got this idea that we would put the fence a bit more in our lane. We had the Ministry of Education agreeing in, you know, pushing back the fence towards the green field to make a space. And I think you did agree on using the roadside to go and park a bit more inside. So yeah, we are working on that. However, it took so long that the people, the contractor that were in agreement for working with us as discounted price and things like this are dropping off. Yeah, we might need to request more you have to do that. It is really big. We've got volunteer aligned to do that, but we will need some more gravel. We would need so maybe we put our.
Yeah, so I guess once you have consensus within the group as to how you want to proceed, then and understand what it is that you need to deliver that, then yeah, by all means get in touch and see how we can either help you or point you in the right direction. Get help. But yeah, I think the license to occupy to access it will be pretty straightforward. We've done those before.
Just for your information, our roading, we no longer have a roading manager. We've got an acting roading manager who will be starting next week. So I'll bring him up to speed, and at some stage we'll come up for a visitor. So I'll raise in touch with you.
Okay. I guess the last thing, and this is only for your information, is the state of our preschool. So our preschool is a community asset. It is an incorporated society that's run by volunteers and operated locally. At the moment, the role, we are not making enough kids there, so the role is quite low. We had a good system with the van from Coromandel that we're bringing kids at the moment. It's Coromandel preschool changed their rolling system, and so now we don't have any more kids that use this van. The situation is a bit financially tense. We are licensed by MOE. However, if we have to close because of the role, it's going to be very complicated to reopen. And this is again for your information, but it's essential. It's an essential part of our community and the sustainability of this place to keep bringing families back to the land, back to the Northern Coromandel, and keep families able to work here and live here. Preschool is a bit in danger. Like at the moment, we've got less than 3 months due on our clients, and it is.
We're having a session with him this afternoon, so.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But I previously on some of rubbish. I can't believe it. I'm aware of the complexities of it. I worked for a decade with DOC and campgrounds and everything, and various contortions DOC went through to deal with rubbish. I'm aware as a community person, for a variety of attempts to deal with what I'll call the summer overflow of rubbish. It's a mixture of batches, local to everybody. I'm aware that at times we've parked bins in places and they've overflowed, they've been abused, it's complicated. I still feel, John, to take this to the TCDC itself as a rep, that we need some extra easy to use system, which is, we'll say for tourists, and it might be for 1.5, maybe only 2 months. But that peak from Christmas through to probably mid-February, we get local bins, stuff is put in, things, there's a high compliance by people taking the rubbish out, but there's also a significant non-compliance. So it's not going to be a simple answer, but if TCDC can come up with some summer system, and it could be potentially wide, it's done across people. But at present it costs cleaning up the mess. So that's what I'd like to say. There needs to be something for that peak period.
I just think that a little bit. Yeah, we had major issues.
Yep.
And everything, and they just didn't, I guess. It is possible actually to give you additional skills up here. People the same problem during the summertime, they have that mess in place. And so they opted for an additional level of service. Right?
And we'll back that up, the TCDC itself, with resources.
Yeah, that's where the crunch comes. So they opted for an additional level of service. So they got it, but they also got what they call a targeted rate on those. Because the waste management contract is really tight, they deliver X, and they get paid for X.
Yep.
You start throwing in Y and Z, there's an operational contract and additional costs. So they accepted the targeted rate over there in those communities that want that service. And I can give one, I give you probably by try, but it will come at a cost to the community because other communities have asked for the same thing, received it, but it goes on their rates, not on Colville's rates.
Understood.
but on their rates. Now, if I go back to council table and have that argument, get it, but you guys want to pay for it, because that's what I'll be up against.
It only became worse after Doc closed the campgrounds down. It came 10 times worse.
Yeah, I totally, this place up here has had rubbish issues going back. Yeah, and some of them being quite bad. So, yeah, be careful what you wish for.
I understand.
I'll probably get it for you,
I know it.
but I'm also very aware of how wealthy the community is not.
It's a load.
And I work really hard to keep those rates down.
Yeah, it's an awkward one too, because we have to get rated to really look after other people's rubbish. That's what you do.
It was decent, but yeah, have a think about it, and it is a really strong driver.
Okay, roughly, just a rough estimate, what percentage increase or percentage of rates if we had a scheme based on what you know on the Eastern Seaboard?
I can't say what the impact would be just off the top of my head. An impact it would be, but what the amount is, I couldn't tell you.
Tony, I guess one thing, something you feel strongly about, and that you think should be considered with respect to, we have to pay them or whatever, the consultation on the annual plan, put in a submission, figure out make your argument, make your case, as to why you think it should change or stay. But yeah, by all means, have your say in that consultation.
That's probably the most effective disease.
It is.
Not much else will change in a very short time.
No.
And I also acknowledge, I have some of the rubbish. It isn't too.
It isn't the one.
And I'm someone that's sick.
Now that Alan's not walking up and down the road 3 times a week picking it up.
Yeah, exactly. And almost all the rubbish came in here.
We've got the beaches, we do the beach regularly, we pay things to be done.
So we probably need to keep moving, carpet off rubbish, concerns about the rubbish, yeah, do the consultation. Anyone else have a public forum? Yes.
Point about poison.
Yep.
And I just noticed that in 2009, the community board made a statement that they would back hunting and trapping as opposed to 1080. And going forward, and there was a statement that was made and that they would need to move away from the 1080.
Okay.
And it's back on the Moinhow again this July. I just wondered if anyone had any thoughts about that and how we've gone with moving away from it.
Right.
We could. Second point on the way here, I noticed that the whole roadside's been sprayed again, quite a significant buffer. And at the same time, the fire signs go up. What is the merit in turning the roadsides to dead tinder and fire season?
Yeah.
Yeah, TCDs, this community has that, but it has no authority. Only applies to TCD. This board, I'm not sure. Follows suit, but this board certainly does have that policy, but it can only enforce it on land.
It was actually an assertion that they would move away from 1080 and instead back the hunters and the trappers. So I just wondered how that's going.
Oh, and in actual fact, I'm residents started in the bay. So, well,
But it backs the poison. So I mean, if you've got like, so Moinhow environment group is backed heavily by the council, PCDC, and I imagine community boards as well. But they use poison. So does Habitat to us, yeah. You guys push them as well.
see, it is,
Sorry.
how do we impact heavily?
Well, if you guys are sponsoring and funding and giving grants to, say, Habitat to the Hour, they use difecynon, calciferol every year. So that's not really moving away. Do you guys partner with Habitat to the Hour? Or are they a engagement partner?
This community board is certainly engaged with Habitat to Its Hour. This community board has given no grants to Habitat to Its Hour. this board has given no grants towards the use of QAE or any other specific reasons.
Right.
That's really all I can comment.
Yeah.
So like Forest and Bird around Waititi Bay and stuff, with trapping with Long Bay. Be engaging with them. I thought so, yeah, we'll note, so you know that as part of the water emissions. Thank you. I'm not sure about 3 times.
We need to get them a next session.
Leave 1085, I just want to remind you that I think it was last year, the community board here in Colville, we asked that the poisons were not sprayed in the roadside water drains that go into the streams and into the bay.
Yeah, and we have submitted to the roading manager with respect to this. And yeah, the reply was that it is a cost-effective means of vegetation control to protect the moisture of the road. And it's spraying down the weeds, it's pre-emergent, and it's part of the road maintenance.
And on personal basis, I really might put paths and everything outside my house along the road edge. I was very disappointed to find the other day, was just about that long. A whole side way. Yeah, so one reason. So it's just.
You pointed though that you can register your property with council to have no sprays just outside the boom of your property.
But we can't protect all of the waterways in the
No.
I actually suggest you guys go for a little drive up and you'll see weeds this high with that are fully seeded that have been sprayed. There's no logic to that, they've missed the boat. And so it just becomes poison, which is offensive. It's in the Crimes Act.
I will add very briefly, I have the idea, which I actually picked up from your panel, of trying to organise local people periodically to literally, with the correct road management, to be able to walk up. Between the Colville Hill and Colville Village, for instance, there are so many weeds pouring over the edge of the road that land transport is supposed to look at. If it was anything claims on it, but they never do a thing. So I am actually looking at the idea of a local group who will periodically do it with backing from the board and CDC, and possibly even resources such as just fuel for machines or whatever.
So when you put that together, it's going to be something that you can bring to us to say, hey, how do we manage that process safely to get it done? Okay,
It's not
I would just like to say, Margaret communicates with me very, very well about any road closures. And, you know, our community, the Bay, a Lure Bay community, amalgamate with Turiara, they get it before me, I tell them. I get it before them, I tell them. And I'm quite willing, if anybody wants to give Margaret their email, I could add it on to my mailing. Because I know TCD, they're a little bit restricted to the privacy of who they can see emails to, but Margaret can send me an email. I think I'm quite willing to add that on the email. And to the article, would you do the same?
Thanks, Danny.
Is that the?
Yeah. So we just share that communication.
Okay, thanks, Danny.
So if anybody wants to give it to Margaret, okay.
Change your email.
Steve, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Takes time to get here and there's traffic light.
Great job. Anyone else wishing to speak to public forum?
Oh,
Very briefly, if you wish.
oh. Thank you.
briefly.
That's what we're here for, isn't it?
And I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for the way you handled public forum today. It hasn't been my reform, it's been very free flowing, but it's actually good.
Nice to have one change. Yeah.
Thanks. I apologise for my papers. missing out on all the limits.
Just so we can hear to record what you're saying.
Yes.
Could we move the thing closer, or are you able to make your way?
Oh, it's being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll endeavour to be brief. That's good. So as you know, 5 years ago, we presented to the community about Waikanae Road, which is the road reserve, and there's a technical anomaly with parts of it not being of the existing road not falling. And what triggered this was the council put out a letter saying that 23 rural roads would be upgraded, and they included Waikanae Valley Road. So that was the initial thing, acknowledged that there's a rural road. So this initiated communications with the roading manager, and they have had difficulty contacting the iwi. In fact, have not made any contact because it's in transition to iwi ownership. Complicated there. So I'm just asking just a couple of questions on behalf of about 50 people. So who is the new roading manager? We need, obviously there's a new roading manager, so we've got to start all over again and have these conversations.
Hopefully it passes through with the file, but we don't yet have a roading manager.
We have an acting roading manager until the new roading manager has been recruited.
And who is that?
The acting roading manager is Ian Whittaker, who has actually been on council staff for quite a few years. We've all been aware of the area, and there are file notes and stuff here, so yeah, he can be brought up to speed on it.
So the previous one had trouble contacting the iwi. Even after a year, they did not manage to know who to contact, and they said they were embarrassed. So yeah, it's been 5 years now. So we hope to activate this. And has the promised survey of the road been done?
We wouldn't be in a position to
No.
answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something for us to ask of the acting road. Okay, so I guess that's where we can go to from here, is to update the acting roading manager on the 5 years of.
So we ask that on your behalf.
Because initially the community board presented to the council on our behalf.
Yeah.
And there hasn't really been a follow-up, or, we wonder.
And it does just slip, I guess, in the background, bubbling away. It was with legal. So
It still is.
it still is with legal. So something, we have an action list that we have that sits with us. It's something that, yeah, I would suggest we should put on to our action list. We'll talk about that later on. It's something that we just kind of keep an eye on time to time.
Because there are more residents in the valley. 4 different landowning parties, and it's used by emergency services, the public, the iwi, the farm, use, and we pay for it.
Yeah. Right.
So it's an issue we'd like if we have progress on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. It's been, yeah, great having you come and share your thoughts and give us the hope that we need every now and then, and raise your issues. Can I ask one thing, please? Those that haven't registered for public forum, we just please have your name and a contact for you, just so we can add that to the minutes, to the record, that showing that you came and spoke. and we can progress, issues that get raised. Some issues. So with that, can we have a mover, please, to accept the public forum speakers? And a seconder? All those in favour? Aye. Okie dokie. So just some additional matters, anything urgent that's on the agenda that anyone feels they need raising today? No? Any conflict of interest? Can we read the minutes? And then we just have the previous minutes from last month's meeting. Confirmation if everyone read the minutes from the previous meeting. No issues with the minutes as an accurate record of what was done at the meeting. Yep. Okay, and move in a second. Second. Those in favour? Okay. We'll move on to the CAPEX work programme.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Or on Mr. Jean, I just, just the cameras.
This is an update on the projects that are currently underway that are being funded within our ward.
Yes. So pretty standard report this month. I'm going to take it as read. There is no real big differences to what's in the report at this point as in regards to live updates, but I'll take any questions you might have.
John, do you have a question?
Yes, you can answer that.
What's interesting in the Karakia House playground, the replacements, the replacements. Is there any sort of plan or anything available?
Correct. There is, and we're going, that's what George is here today.
Right.
So she's going to talk to the plan and bring it up on the screen.
Right.
Yep. So presumably she's joining me soon or a bit later.
She's joining with you, Luke, but
Yes.
there's anything else on the CAPEX program that the board want to discuss prior to Georgia?
Questions? I think we're happy with progress. Pretty happy to see Windy Point. But yes, in terms of this report, everybody's happy. Thank you.
Georgia, do you want to come up?
Yeah, to come over there.
This is Georgia Nugent, she's in my team, had the intro earlier. So has recently come back from having a young third brought into the family and is now project managing. So
Here I am. It's a little bit hard to see.
very small.
Very small. Best way to do this is.
What I can do, Georgia, while you're doing that, will that room things if I pass the bit.
You can pass it around.
That's about what you're doing.
Okay, so I've enlarged, I guess, the people that can see a little bit of that. And so with Karakia House, we have decided to do a plan for the two stages. One is the renewal that we'll be doing this financial year. And the second stages are, we wish we could do it down the line, just planning in advance a little bit to see, look, let's look at this on the whole with our renewal. So for this year, we are doing the big multi-structure at the front. We're aiming, on the plan is the brief that was given to our successful suppliers, where that we want 3 to 12 is the age group that we're aiming for. And we also wanted a cultural aspect included in the playground design. So this is what we are looking at. So we have a whare style multi-structure in the centre with some new slide designs. Part of this stage as well, we have the Matariki natural log. Just confused.
Once in place, that's it.
Yeah, just so you can see it a little bit better. We've got the natural play, which is for the more junior kids. So that's a bit of fun for them. Then we've got the pole climber at the back, which would be included in the stage. So you can see you've got the rock wall at the back, a couple of bridges, 3 different slides. This end is more for the junior kids as well. And then just another angle. See? So our second stage, we're looking at adding a little bit more of inclusive play with some accessibility aspects. So we've got the wheelchair carousel, which means anyone with a pram or anyone in a wheelchair, anyone can use it. Obviously, this is a potential stage, but we're hoping that we can even consult with the community and get some buy-in for it.
I think that's an important point to make, is it's a non-funded element. So the funding we've got right now is to deliver on the bigger or play structure, the multi-structure. But what we thought was, well, if we're going to upgrade that, you should think about the whole design of the playground and the area around it. And so if we do that in next LTP, we can put a business case forward essentially to fund the remainder of it, so that you've got a whole complete renewal of the playground. My advice is, and I'm advocating for, is that we start to think about whole of site. So it's not just actually about the playground, it's about bringing the signs, the path, and pulling a particular whole site business case, so that you're actually got in the centre of town a revitalised area for people to say, you look, car parking, do that whole picture design and put a business case. So that's what I'd be advocating for next. But with the funding we've got for the playground, we're able to get that stage 2 sort of just concept design in place.
So the first stage is just the original school area that's already there.
Yeah, and the log stacker that you can see.
So it's not including upgrades of the swings or anything like that. They exist and stay.
Yeah,
It's just that multi-structure.
just multi-structure.
So the whole existing multi-structure that is now has been removed completely. Well past its life and been replaced with what's in the picture that you can see, 3 sides of it. And the good thing about this is it looks different, and it actually is providing some different play elements for the kids, so that they don't feel like, oh, we just got a new version, but they're exactly the same things that have been there for the last 15 years. There's actually new play elements on this one. And the little wooden stuff on the front, where you can just see the blocks and stuff, is for the little wee ones, isn't it? It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
My dad's been
And there's the pole climber at the back as well, which has just got a few little climbing aspects. Yeah, we are aiming to have this delivered by 20th of June for a Matariki celebration. But we are just currently working through the resource consent with the magnolia tree and getting approval from New Zealand Heritage with that. So that's what we're aiming for, we're hoping for.
So that was on the 25.
To do with what?
So we're not touching the magnolias.
No.
It's the magnolia needs the consent.
It's a heritage listed tree.
Just in that screenshot there, if you, when the next stage, when you're revitalising, doing the whole thing, there was some feedback with respect to the way that car park is situated. You see the person walking across there. So people come to use the car park their cars in the car park, the kids jump out the door and then run across the road. If there was any way to refashion that so the cars were parked on the same side of the road as the car park, that would be great.
That's actually a bigger project that the previous community board did actually do a bit of work on, and it's in the Coromandel Streetscape and Guidelines document. That actually shows a whole realignment of Glover Street, doing just what. So I guess when it comes time for the LTP reviewers, that's what they think is something that it should be pushing that.
Yeah.
I think the key point is the stuff's outside of our control.
Yeah.
So we're on target is the 20th of June, but it will take longer than we do. That might hold up works. So we'll have everything contracted, everything will be lined up in place, but it might go a little bit longer. So the work will start, but it
is attracting a little bit far. So, how long will it take, do you think?
They've set it up 2 weeks from start to finish, so.
That's not too bad. It's good. It's good.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
No, thanks, guys. Much appreciated.
That's coming up to call.
Right, we'd love to try this one.
So don't need to be stopping anything. With the formal part of the meeting, you're welcome to stay and observe and watch this. But unfortunately, the reality of the meeting requires us to. A little late. Very unusual for us.
I'll say.
So the CAPEX report, movement please. All those in favour? Aye. Let's done. I understand we have a report now with respect to.
It's been ready. Gavin's going to come straight to that one. With the longest.
It's online.
Kia ora. Can everyone hear me okay?
Just here, there's a little bit of movement just in a minute, but. Okay, Ian, or Brett, gonna speak again.
Good morning. Look, thank you very much for your time today. I've just got a brief presentation. I think the projector is not working there today, but I think you've got handout copies of this presentation in front of you. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can see it on a laptop screen in front of us. So, yep, right on.
Perfect. Look, I will present. My name's Ian Morton. I'm a project manager supporting Thames Coromandel District Council with local water done well. As I say, I've got a brief presentation. We've got John Grant on the line as well. So Councillor John Grant, along with the Mayor and Councillor Terry Walker, are part of a local water done well working group. So we work really closely with John, Len and Terry to give advice through to us and as we kind of progress this work. So I'll pass over to John at the end just to kind of provide some context and how they're seeing things as well. So if we just jump to the next slide, and we've got Brett online just to answer, I'll say, any kind of technical questions that pop up through the presentation itself. So I'll just do a quick recap on local water done well. What is it there to do? I'll just give a brief on what we've done to date, and then we'll really just talk about some potential options for future water service delivery, which we'll be looking to go out to consultation on in April. And really the discussion we want to have with you today is, just your views around some of those potential options and any feedback on that. And we'll feed that into a council report that's going to councillors on the 8th of April. So yeah, just really keen to get your feedback around those potential options. I'm happy to take questions as we go, so please stop me. And without further ado, I'll just move into the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So look, TCDC has 3 water assets spread throughout the peninsula. Obviously, in the Coromandel area, you've got the kind of 2 sets of water assets. So we've got this map identifying, potable water, so the drinking water, wastewater, and also stormwater assets. So obviously, in the Coromandel area, we've got the 3 waters, but then in the Oamaru Bay, then obviously the 2 waters there, so no potable water up there. Just as far as overall assets, so you'll see the asset value at the top of that. So there's 890 million of assets in 3 waters. So it's quite a significant asset base for Thames Coromandel District Council. If we jump on to the next slide. So just as far as the legislation and what's happened, so the new coalition government came into effect, and one of their first things they did was they repealed the previous Water Services Act. So that previous Water Services Act was the previous Labour government initiative to basically consolidate into 4 entities across New Zealand, 4 large entities, a mandated 3 waters reform. So it wasn't optional for councils, it was mandated. And again, they were looking for really large size scale entities to deliver 3 waters. So in February 2024, the new coalition government repealed that Water Services Act. And at that point in time, they said, we'll come back to you to advise what we want to do for local waters done well going forward. Around middle of 2024, they tabled what was called the Water Services Preliminary Arrangements Act. And what they identified there was they wanted each individual council across New Zealand to make a decision on their own 3 waters. But what they did was they set some really clear baselines about what councils had to meet as far as they needed to have financial sustainability. And I'll talk about that in the next slide. They identified that there would be different regulation put in place, and they also require councils to prepare a water service delivery plan and submit that by the 3rd of September 2025, which is this September. And within that water service plan, again, there's clear legislation about what's got to be included, and we've also got to consult with the community on that as well. In December, detailed legislation came out, and that's a future legislation piece there. That was quite lengthy. So that was 305 pages long. It had 432 clauses. It also had changes to other local government acts as well. So really detailed requirements around what had to be met as part of this legislation. It also provided clarity around setup of a council controlled organisation. So that's like separate organisations outside of council control. Still assets owned by council. So none of this is linked to any privatisation type approach. Within the legislation, all the assets remain council owned and locally owned. So the next thing that we're looking at is the 3rd of September and basically preparing our water service delivery plan. As noted, we've got to go out and consult, and we plan to do that in April, May. And then once we've consulted, council will then make a decision on future water service delivery and then submit that water service plan. And again, that's what we want to try and get some feedback from you today. So local water done well. So there's 4 key aspects to it. Yep. So water service delivery plan, we've got to submit that by September. New structural and financing tools. So as part of the legislation, the government identified that some councils were struggling with their level of borrowing. So councils can borrow up to 200%. Some larger councils can borrow slightly more because of the size and scale. But let's say it's around 200% as part of the Local Government Financing Act. And within councils, some of them are already at that level or beyond that level for the 3 waters assets. So what the government said was, if you go together and join a CCO, we'll allow those CCOs to borrow up to 500%. Now, that's quite a significant step change from borrowing 200% of your revenue, being able to borrow 500%. Some councils who are, I will say, in large growth councils, significant growth councils, really want access to that 500% of borrowing, just so that they can fund growth, but also they can fund the investment over a much longer period of time as well. And again, for some of these three water assets that, you know, have quite long lifespans, that's quite attractive. So that was brought in. That only applies if you go for I would say a joint CCO and set up a professional board. That access to additional financing is not available if you retain services within council. From a financial sustainability, so each council had to ensure that any water revenue, so any money that comes in for water services, is enough to cover its costs, basically. So that costs include any financing costs and any depreciation costs. It needs to ensure that all the capital investment needed to meet regulatory requirements are fully funded. So in the past, some councils have moved funding for Three Waters assets further out because of affordability within the community, or to maintain certain rates increases. As part of this legislation, councils are no longer able to do that. So the financial sustainability component is really key and actually really tough for a lot of councils to meet these legislative requirements. TCDC are not in that position, and again, I'll talk about that in a moment. From a regulation point of view, so they're setting up economic regulations, so that's through the Commerce Commission. So they'll be preparing, I would say, public reports. They'll be assessing across New Zealand how much is being charged for each of the three waters, and really kind of ensuring that the public is getting value for money for the three water services as provided. That does come with a cost, though, because obviously that's a new regulator that isn't in place now, and local communities will need to fund that regulation. In addition, Taumata Arawai are in place, so they're the Water Services Authority, and again, they will be given slightly different powers. They're being asked to have a look to identify ways of streamlining the regulation that's in place just now, and especially around wastewater standards, where they put some new wastewater standards out with the intent to try and reduce some of the regulatory costs for councils. So again, some changes to the regulation as well that will be coming through. Any questions on that?
That's good. Thanks, Ian.
No? Okay. So if we jump to the next slide. So when the legislation came out in September, the Act itself, Thames Coromandel contracted Martin Jenkins. So Martin Jenkins are involved with preparing financial analysis for 12 different councils across New Zealand. So they're very well informed. They were also quite heavily involved with the government and provide advice directly to the government. So they came in and had a look at Thames Coromandel's assets, the financial position, and they came back in December and identified three key things for Thames Coromandel. One is they are entirely financially sustainable, so you have very low debt levels for your Three Waters assets in comparison to anyone else. I work with quite a few other councils on local water done well, and you are by far the best from a financial point of view, in that you've got really low debt levels. You've also got reasonably good assets in place at the moment, so your assets are in pretty good condition, and also you've got an LTP that was signed off for your LTP 2024 to 34 that's got a really robust plan for CAPEX delivery as well. So from a current state point of view, you're in such a good position, and that sets you in really good stead, and it means that you've got options. Some councils don't have those options, but you do have options. In December, we presented that current state analysis to council, and also we looked at shortlisting some options, and again, I'll talk about that in a moment. Over the last few months, so between January and March, we've done more detailed analysis on some of the potential options for water service delivery, and again, I'll talk through that. We plan to go out to consultation between the 15th of April and the 15th of May. Following that, we'll table the feedback of that consultation to council at the end of May and just say, look, this is what the community is telling you. And then we'll then seek to get a decision from council at the end of June on what the preferred water service delivery is. We then need to update and prepare a water service delivery plan and submit that in by, I've got in there the 5th of August. In fact, you've got until the end of September, but because of local elections, we're targeting to have that completed earlier. But look, you're in a great financial position and you've got options. I'll jump to the next slide. So so in December we discounted some options. So there was internal business unit. So that's really delivering things similar to what you delivered just now. You do need to ring fence some things. So you've got to basically take all of the revenue and make sure that's allocated to a particular business unit within council. You need to make sure all the cost allocation is appropriate for that internal business unit, including things like IT and HR, all your kind of shared services costs. But it would operate very similar to what is done now. It would just be a business unit within council. So there'd be very little impact of doing that, and that is definitely a viable option for TCDC. The single council CCO, so that's kind of setting up a professional set of board members purely for Thames Coromandel. That doesn't really give access to any benefits for Thames Coromandel because you're already in a really good financial position. So there's no benefits to that. And there is obviously significant costs for setting that CCO up. So it was discounted at the time. The next one is a multi-council owned water organisation. And again, that's a very viable option for Thames Coromandel. And there's 3 different sub-regional options that we've been exploring. And again, I'll talk more about that. The 2 to the right-hand side, so the Mixed Council Consumer Trust-owned organisation or the fully consumer trust-owned organisation was discounted in December. And again, they can't access at the same borrowing rates as the Local Government Finance Act. So they would be borrowing at much higher rates, and there's very little benefits for ratepayers as part of that. So they were discounted at that point in time as well. So we got down to 2 shortlist options in December, and that's what we've been focusing on over the last 3 months. If we go to the next slide. So just so that really captures what was agreed in December, and then again the subsequent development. So we've worked with 3 different groups of sub-regional partners. One is a Bay of Plenty grouping, so that's Tauranga City Council, Western Bay of Plenty District Council, and actually we've had Whakatane District Council as part of that group as well. The second group we've worked with is Waikato Water Done Well. So that's all the councils within the Waikato, with the exception of Hamilton, Waikato District Council and Thames Coromandel. So we've been working with them as well. And then the third grouping we've been working with is Hamilton City Council and Waikato, who have decided to set up a separate CCO on their own. If we jump on to the next slide. So just as far as I'll say these 2 broad options, just within council, internal business unit, very little changes to what's done now. All the decision making is made by councillors. No change to really what there is now. There's some financial changes in the background, but very little change to what we do now. The second one, which is the multi-council water organisation. So as part of that, TCDC would need to agree which partners they work with. They would then set up a shareholder council. They would then appoint a board of directors. So this is the professional board of directors. And also the council would set a statement of expectations. So you would very clearly, and you would update this every year, saying this is what our community expects to be delivered by this water multi-council CCO. It's then up to that professional board to hire the relevant resources. Obviously, resources that would be existing within councils would expect to transfer over, but they would be responsible for the operation and the day-to-day delivery. And they would then report back on a regular basis back to the shareholding councils on how they're delivering against the needs as identified in the statement of expectations. But the day-to-day operations would be very much done by this water organisation. So as mentioned, there's 3 variations we've been looking at. So the Bay of Plenty grouping, the Waikato Water Done Well grouping, and the Hamilton City and the Waikato District grouping. So 3 different options there. And I will say, because Thames Coromandel are in such a great position, everyone wants to partner with you. Because you bring alongside this the access to debt that they don't necessarily have, and you don't need, because you're already in a good position. So again, there's options there for you in that sub-regional variations.
Ian, just a question with respect to Waikato District. How can Waikato District be a subgrouping apart from kind of the Waikato regional groupings? Because they sort of overlay everybody, don't they?
Well, no, so that's a very much a district within the Waikato. So that's not the regional kind of district itself. So the Waikato district is very distinct. So interestingly, the Waikato district previously used to get their water services from Watercare, but Watercare basically said that they would not support delivery to Waikato District Council going forward. So they're now partnering up with Hamilton City Council, who are their neighbours, to set up a CCO. And they're going really fast. They're setting that up really fast. So they're looking to set up in 1 July this year. So that's very much a district within the Waikato, not the Waikato overall.
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. So if we just jump on to the next slide. So what we agreed with council was just some very clear strategic objectives that we would assess each option against. So one, we've got some that are in here that we need in order to meet the legislation. So efficiency and financial sustainability. We need to protect the health, public health and the environment. So again, meet the regulatory requirements. We've got to take into account natural hazards and climate change. So these are all things that are required as part of the legislation. But for things like integrated water services and infrastructure planning, that's not part of the regulation, but it was important for TCDC. The same with affordability. Interestingly, that's not part of the regulation. But again, the councillors said, look, that's really important to us and our communities, so we want that in as a point to assess the options against. The responsibilities to Hapu and iwi are met, so we have to include that, and that's part of the legislation. And the other one is just what's left with council. So are council operations viable, and what does that mean for council in the long term as well? So if we go on to the next slide, we've assessed each of the I'll say high level options against those 2 points. No one option gives you everything. There's trade-offs against each of these. So financially, both internal business unit and the multi-council CCO delivers those efficiency and financial sustainability. The only thing is, with a multi-council CCO, you can get scale efficiencies that would provide additional benefits. You can also optimize some investment, so you can bring forward some investment as well. And also you've got a greater financial capacity if you were to join with others, because you've got access to that 500%. So
we don't, because as a standalone, we owe less against our assets, so therefore we could borrow more. But if we bundle in with them, overall, we could borrow less for our assets.
So there's probably 2 ways of setting up an agreement with that multi-council CCO. So there's one called harmonised and one called non-harmonised. Harmonised is where you basically put everything into one bucket, and it's up to that organisation to manage, within that one bucket, revenue and costs. That wouldn't be beneficial for TCDC, because then you would end up paying for others. Really, there's a non-harmonised way where they would set up the organisation, but they would have buckets for each individual councils, and then what you would do is they would still have access to borrow against that amount, but any benefits, any efficiencies would be shifted back home to the ratepayers of Thames Coromandel. And that would be the only viable option that would be a benefit to Thames Coromandel. When we've been working with these larger councils, specifically Taronga, they've said that they want to partner, but there's got to be mutual benefits for everyone. And they've been very clear about that. And I think that's something that we're very conscious of, that there's got to be benefits for the people of the Thames Coromandel, and it can't be that you're funding any others. So you would need to go forward on the basis of a non-harmonised at this moment in time. Does that make sense?
It does, but then I guess what's the point of working with them?
Well, but you would still be getting all the scale efficiencies. So, and they would be shifted back home directly to, to Thames Coromandel. So that would give you larger scale, larger efficiencies, but they would run basically separate balance sheets within their organisation to support that.
Yeah, but it's not like you can put in one big water treatment plant to treat water for everybody. We're still going to have our own infrastructure.
Correct.
So really, apart from only paying 10 cents a bulk because you're buying 10,000 of them instead of buying 20 cents because you're only buying 5,000 of them. I just wonder about the efficiency gains, really.
Sure. Well, I'll maybe cover off that once I've gone through this, because there's a lot of detailed information on efficiency gains that's been made, specifically in Australia. Probably Victoria and Tasmania are the best examples, and what we've done is, well, I'll cover that off at the end because it's an important question, but I'll maybe come back to that if that's okay.
Okay.
So look, just as far as protect and promote public health and the environment, yep, so definitely internal business unit can do that. But obviously, if you've got access to, if you've got big projects that are needed in the future that come as a surprise, you'll have access to kind of more debt and capacity within a larger council to deliver any significant projects. You can also, as I say, bring forward funding. As far as integration, though, internal business unit would have a benefit because obviously they're already integrated. The Three Waters team with your planning department, they're already very integrated. Whereas with a multi-council CCO, there'll just be more complexities. It's not saying that we can't do it. There's just more complexities around that multi-council CCO for integration. If we go to the next slide. So affordability and fit for purpose, this is probably quite a key difference between the two. So we've done detailed financial modelling. So obviously for the internal business unit, we have information that's contained within the long-term plan. But we've done detailed financial modelling for the multi-council CCO with our three different partner groups. So just as far as what rates are just now, so rates are currently $2,000 per annum for TCDC ratepayers. For an internal business unit in 10 years' time, so 2034, that would probably increase to $2,500. If you were to go for a multi-council CCO, the cost would be $1,950 based on the model we have. Now, just from an efficiencies, so getting back to the efficiencies question, again, there's lots of international experience. So the savings definitely in procurement. There's also savings in staff, and that's, when I say staff, it's not less staff, it's just how do you actually use the staff more effectively, and actually some reduced costs on consultants. So things like, every council for every project having to get an external designer or design consultancy organisation. And if you were to then in-house some of that design work, then obviously there's quite significant savings that can be made around that. So there's various different savings that can be made. What we've done within the multi-council model is we've had a look internationally about what's been achieved and over what time period, because this doesn't happen from day one. And we've assumed 50% of what's been internationally achieved. So we said, look, let's be conservative. But even on that conservative approach, it's quite a significant gain as far as what can be achieved from those efficiencies. So just as far as water subsidies are resilient to natural hazards and climate change, yep, absolutely, you can be compliant with the internal business unit. But just that multi-council CCO, again, if something kind of pops up that you are not expecting, climate resilience can be quite expensive. And again, having access to additional debt that you can actually spend that money is quite significant. Responsibilities for iwi and hapu. So obviously you've got relationships in place, so obviously quite strong just now. With a new multi-council CCO, you would need to set them up. So again, there's some work to do there and some complexities around that. And then just as far as remaining council operations are viable, so obviously the internal business unit would be have benefits over the multi-council CCO, because obviously you're still retaining a full council. With the multi-council CCO, there are some benefits. So if you were to transfer, for example, any debt that you've got on Three Waters over to another organisation, it would free up money within council for you to spend on other things. So, and again, because you're in such a good debt position, that's quite beneficial. So if we jump to the next slide. So look, this is a summary. Again, no one option is the panacea. No one option will give you everything, but really you've got kind of two key options here, two key things to consider. The internal business unit is a benefit if you want more control, i.e. more local decision making, and if you want better integration with council and communities. So if that's really important to you, the internal business unit will give you that. If you want to look at affordability for the future and that ability to invest more in your Three Waters, or look at that pricing, then that multi-council CCO would be a better option for you. So again, there's no one that gives you everything, yeah, it's more around what's important for you and for council. So before I just look to try and get some feedback, I'll maybe just hand over to John, Councillor John Grant, just to add his perspective, if that's okay.
Thanks very much, and hello to everybody. Good to catch up. I am sure that you are realising, just by what's been covered today, just how much detail there is in working through this, and really what a large decision that this is for the council. There's $900 million worth of assets, and the future of how we handle the Three Waters. My appeal to you today is to take the opportunity to really analyse and look at this, because as the leaders in the community, we will be engaging with people through the consultation process, and it's really important that everybody participates in that process, has the opportunity of being able to ask the questions, raise issues, because there won't be a second chance once the decisions are made and we start moving forward. So, I guess my key message is have a look through. This isn't the last opportunity. So if you want to sort of take it away and have a think about things and then come back and ask questions, please do so. There's an extensive consultation process starting with the public and our ratepayers, of course, in April, and that will lead to decisions that will be made, and the key one through in September this year. So it's just really vitally important that you all understand what is on the table here.
Thanks, John. We'll maybe just jump on to the next slide, and really this is just asking for some feedback. Have you got any thoughts about, preferred options? Have you got any concerns? Have you got any additional questions? Have you got anything that you want or maybe heard from the public around things that we need to consider for the consultation document? So yeah, so we'd just like to stop there and just really open it up for questions and feedback.
It's kind of hard, isn't it? When things are going good, the puppies all play nicely with each other, but when they start going wrong, the big dog eats the small dog. Yeah, we have access to more, like with the combined thing, we have access to more money if something goes terribly wrong for us. But then if something goes terribly wrong in Hamilton City, or in Waikato or in Whakatane, yeah, we miss out. It's tough.
And look, there is obviously, as part of the legislation, there's some quite clear, I'll say, protections identified. The detailed legislation I mentioned that's 305 pages long to protect that. And obviously, you've got to put in place clear statement of expectations around that. But there will be, I'll say, trade-off calls made by that water board organisation, but they will have access to quite a lot of additional resources and funding in order to make some good decisions. So I think it's all key that that whatever contract is agreed, that it's actually mutually benefit for all, because without that there's no point in proceeding.
Just sort of hard for me to ask questions here at the moment. John, I suppose, John Grant, but the affordability is a big thing. And by separation, it certainly lowers our debt levels within council and gives us the ability to fund more, but funding more just means more debt, more borrowing. And I really, at the moment, constrained to 175% of our revenue. Are you not any concerns, John, about the amount of debt that we might be taking on when we've actually got access to do the ability to do so?
I really don't, John, from the point of view that all of it would need to be business cased and understood in regard to the financial commitments that come with that. And the leveraging at the levels that has been talked about here would be something to help in the in the development, but it would have to stand on its own in regard to its financial sense of proceeding and doing those things. So I think the key things here weigh up, and there are two very strong arguments. There's a standalone argument, and based on some really good decisions that this council has made over a number of years to put us in a very strong position. But the reality is that larger groups and clusters get the benefit of the synergies that develop from those larger groups. And that is being seen. It's evidence now through the water care in Auckland that is starting to see some of those benefits coming through. And the cost estimations that are showing, that 2,500 estimated average cost versus the 1950 if we were to form a group with other people. Now, that comes with a whole lot of questions within that. What are the assumptions that have been made? How strong are those assumptions? And that's what's really being tested at the moment. But I don't have the answers. I'm just really trying hard to make sure that everybody engages in the process and asks all the questions, and through that will strengthen the and lead us to help make the right decision at the end of the day.
Can I maybe add to that? So just as far as that access to additional debt, so you've got a really good, robust long-term plan in place. We have had Becca, an independent engineer, review that to make sure it is compliant and it is robust. And they've confirmed that it is. We've also reviewed the new wastewater standards to make sure there won't be any shocks as a result of that. Now, there's a couple of things we need to include in as a result of that, but nothing major. And if you look at the debt levels as a result of your planned CAPEX spend, that's not going to significantly impact going forward as well. Just on the water care example I mentioned about Waikato District Council, so they were being supported by water care. Water care are making about 2.5% efficiencies per annum. We're targeting something around 1.5% efficiencies per annum. And when Waikato District Council have stepped out of that water care, they've had to back out a whole bunch of efficiencies. So for their ratepayers, their rates are going to go up quite significantly because they're not seeing the efficiencies they were getting from when they were partnered with Watercare. And when we do go out to consultation, all the reports on efficiencies will be publicly available on the website so that people can have a look at and understand what we've done and why.
Can I just pop in? Unfortunately, I wasn't even going to be here today because I was supposed to be flying, but I've managed to squeeze it in. But my ride has arrived and I have to leave. So I look forward to another meeting with the board at some stage to further the discussions. But please encourage you to participate and look forward to the next catch up.
Cool. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Good time. And I guess, yeah, we need to move on again as well. So, yeah, we've got the information, we've got the stuff. Yeah, we can, consider those questions and give you some feedback on it. I guess the good thing about it all is no one's asking us to go into partnership with Wellington Water.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, look, Wellington Water is a CCO, but it doesn't have any of the legislative requirements that are being put in place with the new legislation. It doesn't have any regulation over the top of it. So actually, yeah, so this is going to be quite a different proposition, and probably Watercare would be the better one. I will say, just when we do go through public consultation, so that's 15th of April to the 15th of May, we're organising drop-in sessions at the key centres. So obviously in Coromandel, there'll be a drop-in session which I will attend, and some others will attend as well, along with Brett, to ask any questions, and we'll make sure the community board are invited, along with the wider community as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Great.
Righto. No other questions? Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for your time. Bye now.
See you.
So much work.
Right.
Thanks. You have coffee. Oh, that's, we've still got to do one more thing.
Let's finish the meeting.
Little Bay.
Cheering.
Right. So first of all, we accept the presentation. Mover and a seconder.
Oh. I thought it was.
All in favour? Those two. Aye.
Knock off.
Little
read
Bay.
What's on here.
No,
Then
Little
we
Bay.
could grab a coffee and shoot down and start the.
Are we doing that down there?
Yes, that's when you come
Right,
down at the
right.
table at the European.
Rightio. So the next item on the agenda would be the Little Bay request for funding. Everybody read the reports. Yeah, thoughts. Any thoughts with respect to it?
I think it's great, but it might set a precedent.
Yeah.
That other people come to us and say, hey, we need one in our district, we need one here or there.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it should be self-funded.
Okay.
They've
Yeah.
got reasonably good.
Yeah.
Earners, and it's only what, $2.5 grand, even.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they could come up with it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I know I've been advocating for one for the village in town, because they don't have one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So if it goes ahead, I might have to come to the board for one for them. But, you know,
Yeah.
I just think that it could set a precedent.
That's
what it could be.
Not to chip in, but we do need to also recognise that the village is right in the centre of town that has defibrillators all around it. Little Bay's a rural community, I'm just saying, that has
I
no
agree.
other
I agree.
anywhere near them.
Yeah, but I guess, yeah, Little Bay, Karakia, Port Charles, they've got one. Dock have them at the dock camps up the top.
I think
Would
we're
we be
looking at
funding
it.
their replacements? Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Okay, right.
Go on, yeah.
Jean,
No, I'm just,
you taking it?
I'd say.
Okay, I'm going to take a slightly different view to you on this one, Kate. I actually would like to support it. We do have the ability to do so. I believe we heard more in the meeting 3 times quite physically, so without it, without knowing the facts, we could actually have 3 deaths there instead of 1. So I'd actually like to support this. I would also seriously favourably consider and applications from anywhere else. If we were to come and see us on a case by case basis, I don't see it as any different. I think funding the school for put it up there recently, and if another school was to come and see us and the criteria under that as well. So I don't think we see it increasing everything on a case by case basis. I think that's pretty much words, two lies. So I'd like to.
Want to see?
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't that I was saying we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've personally used one in recent years and it didn't work at the time. But I know from a fact of being on the side of the road and needing one before ambulance could get to us, the closer they are, the better.
Yeah.
You know, and so the more we have everywhere, the better. The more chance they've got of working.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm all for it. I'm just saying I was just making it aware that it could.
That other communities could be looking to.
Yeah, and definitely,
Valid point.
I appreciate your input and definitely encourage, say your thoughts. We need to be here to say what we think and, discuss it and come to a good decision. So, yeah.
And they had come down in price a lot.
Yeah.
From when they first came out, they were, they were up around $10,000.
It's cheap then.
It does. Things really cheap.
Have a discussion before we put forward the motion. Okay, so the motion is that we receive the request for funding from our discretionary budget, that we approve the allocation of $2,160 plus GST to the Little Bay Residents and Ratepayers Association. Have a mover for the motion?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Okay, any debate with respect to the motion now that's before us? Okay, so we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you all. The last matter, public excluded.
Two matches.
Oh, the actual schedule, sorry. Jumping ahead. So the actual schedule report. Yes. We have the report. Take it as read. So, yeah. The rewording in respect to volunteers.
So I think it's just the Williams Act, but the board did note a couple of things, Gavin, that you wanted to add.
It's just from our discussion earlier as to whether we should add the Waikanai Valley Road. Not that we would speak about it every month, but at least those things that do come up that just go under the radar, and next thing you know, a year's passed and we're having the same conversation. At least we can ask whoever's currently holding the Island Council for an update.
Yeah. So that's the Waikanai Valley Road.
Waikanai Valley Road realignment, or re-survey, re-gazetting.
All the above.
Yeah.
Let's just put Waikanai Valley Road, but we'll put some detail underneath
Yes.
about what the issues are and what's being looked at.
Okay. Cool. And we're happy with where Williams Avenue. You see the signs have gone up.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if people are abiding by them.
Oh, that's good.
10 days.
Most of it's slow.
It is very slow.
It's okay. And all
Well,
that.
if we achieve 12 to 15, our job is done.
Well, if we achieve 20, I think we
Yeah, our
can.
job is done, correct.
So has, anybody, this was about somebody coming to the public forum,
Yes.
if somebody advised them? I mean, I'll see the signs, but.
Signs are up.
Give them a.
Yeah, it would be a good
As a
to make a
result.
recognition
I
for the
will,
environmental.
Contact Jessica,
Consent.
the,
Representation.
Yep. Thank you for input and
the Williams Act, I will go and see them myself.
Well, what commission cost of speed limit?
No speed bumps will be hit. Right?
okay. Nothing else around the action
Just
schedule.
never plan to do anything further, did they? than just the signage. That's what the board's agreed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unaffordable.
And we can't afford.
Rightio. So resolution is that we receive the action schedule and make the discuss the agreed addition to it.
Yeah.
Moving seconder and all those in favour? Aye. Motion is carried. Can I do it now? Yes.
Yes.
Rightio, we just have the public excluded minutes to confirm, so.
Yeah.
Yes. Rightio, so. Just looking around.
Just keeping us
Anybody-
safe.
Anybody?
That's Jess's job.
Okay, so yeah, motion to move us to public excluded so we can deal with those minutes. A mover and a seconder.
I'll see.
All in favour?
Aye.
Motion is carried. So now requesting members of the public remaining to leave.
You're so bad.
That's lucky. I thought we were going to have to kick